What other song were we going to use when we have a tribute podcast to Tobe Hooper but Dancing with Myself? Sweat, sweat, sweat. So welcome into our tribute to Tobe Hooper. I'm George Wolf.
I'm Hope Madden.
And we are from madwolf.com. This is the Fright Club podcast. And yeah, it took about 2 seconds to think of the song for this week because if you didn't know, he directed that video.
That's right.
And it was then later lampooned a little bit from the great artiste David Lee Roth in his, remember that? His California, was it California Girls? When he goes through the different, making fun of different videos, and one of them is making fun of that one. Yeah. He wishes.
I don't think I watched that one as often or with as rapt attention as I did that Billy Idol video.
So it's all about Tobe Hooper because we got that sad news here. Well, it's been probably about a week ago now, right?
Yeah.
Or at least a few days. That, he passed away, and that was pretty unexpected, I think.
And, it's already been a pretty, tragic year, especially for horror filmmakers.
Yeah. It just seems like now, I don't know if it says something about us, getting up to a certain age, but man, so many of the greats in both movies, horror movies, and music.
Yeah.
We just got another one today. Walter Becker of Steely Dan passed away. I mean, and they're seemingly young. I mean, just taken too soon. So yeah, Tobe Hooper, and of course has a long, iconic history in horror movies. One, of course, lording over the others, but he's got others to talk about as well.
He does.
And that's what we're going to do here. Talk about our top 5 noteworthy flicks from Tobe Hooper's horror catalog. But first of all, we got to say thank you for last week. We had a lot of fun finally with Fright Clubber #1, John Dean, finally making it on the show. It felt a little bit like Jimmy Kimmel's ongoing gag with Matt Damon. Don't have time. Sorry, we got to bump him. It took so long to get John Dean on the show, but he did a great job.
He really did. He totally did. And for those of you who don't know, he was actually in radio for a while, so it's one of the reasons why he was so smooth.
Yeah, he was. I hired him as a part-timer, and his now wife, Heather, who actually works here at the radio station with me. But John is now an attorney.
That's right.
But back then, he was doing the part-time radio thing. So, he was smooth. And he brought some he did his homework,
He did.
And he brought some nice knowledge and some nice opinions. So, we thank you. Thank you for that and for the feedback for the German horror. Yeah,
well, I think, it's funny that we mentioned it, too. I cannot believe it took us this long to do German horror because the country has so many great movies, like so many. And most people were really happy with the list. Silas, our good friend Silas, he was sorry that Caligari hadn't actually made our top 5.
Yeah, and it almost did. And we've given the love to that movie quite often.
We have.
Which doesn't mean we can't give it more love. No. But I think also, too, I noticed some of the comments were going back and forth about, well, is it Austrian? Is it German? What are the rules? What qualifies as German? But I think you should know by now, the rules are what Hope makes them. So
yeah, because there are 2 films that, technically speaking, are Austrian, but one, Funny Games, Haneke is German.
Yeah.
And it's a German language film, and the director is German,
yeah.
so that's...
we gave it the...
Right. Good Night, Mommy is Austrian. It's an Austrian film made by Austrian filmmakers in Austria. However, it's German language, and we really liked it, and it was on my list and John's list, so we're like, yeah, you know what?
So, you know what?
I don't think we're going to do
look
Austrian
away.
horror. I don't think we're going to do an entire podcast on, although now that I say it, I'm going to look into it and see if I'm wrong.
So basically, you're saying, all right, guilty. And okay.
Yes.
But pay no attention.
We fessed up as we did the podcast.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you for the feedback, and thank you to John Dean. And we look ahead to our next edition of Fright Club Live, which is coming up fast, and that is going to be September the 13th. It's always the second Wednesday of the month. Right back there at Gateway Film Center, we're going to be having fun doing a podcast talking about Horrific Sisters and watching Ginger Snaps.
Woo!
Okay, but this week it's given due to the horror career of Tobe Hooper, and we're going to start at number 5 with the story of a psychotic redneck. You had me at psychotic redneck, who owns a dilapidated hotel in Texas and kills various people who upset him or his business, and he feeds their bodies to a large crocodile that he keeps as a pet in the swamp beside his hotel. From 1976, Eaten Alive.
If you were one of the millions of moviegoers who were electrified by the unbearable suspense and sheer terror of Jaws, get ready for Eaten Alive. Created by Tobe Hooper, maker of the screen sensation The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Into this house of terror comes a handful of unsuspecting innocents.
Hello?
What happens to these people in Eaten Alive will give you the most chilling, terrifying 90 minutes you ever spent in a theater. Get ready for Eaten Alive, the new horror classic.
Let's just take a pause for a second.
Okay.
Not all of Tobe Hooper's films are good.
Right. That's something.
We're going to hit the top of this list and talk about two of just all-time greats, right? And then after that, he made about a half a dozen not very good, mediocre, interesting movies, and then he made about a half a dozen bits of dreck. So a couple that we should just mention, right? Because people are going to be pissed off Salem's Lot's not on this list. What is our rule about made-for-TV movies, George?
We don't do them.
No, we don't. And the truth is, I'm not sure Salem's Lot would have made this list.
Yeah,
because
you just watched it again.
I did just watch it again because I thought, oh, okay, maybe we'll bend that rule for this one. Because the thing that I have always remembered liking the most about it, of course, is that the vampire looks like Count Orlok. It's that style of vampire, the bald one with the kind of the rat teeth. But the way that it's made for TV, they chop up the book in ways where they throw a clue at you and then they never resolve it or circle back to it.
Yeah.
And the acting is atrocious. And
well, and here's the thing too. I know it's been recommended that we do TV horror, and it's just not our thing. I mean, just to show. I mean, TV. God love you. I mean, we get pitched. We get recommended good TV shows all the time because I know there's great TV out there right now. There is. But I'll tell you, at the beginning of this year, January 1st, we thought it'd be fun. We started keeping track of each and every movie that we watched throughout the year. And right now, we are on pace. In a year of 365 days, we are on pace to watch about 350 movies this year. So we just don't have any time to watch TV.
Well,
so
that doesn't mean we have seen Salem's Lot.
We have, but and we don't care for it. But I'm just saying, talking about the our horror TV, best of horror TV, because I'm thinking there's probably been a lot here in the last few years that we just have not seen.
Because it's all the stuff that people have told us that we should watch, and I'm
That's
sure
right.
we should, but we're
That's
not
right.
going to. And we can't do a podcast on it because you can't just watch one thing and go yes or no. You have to watch like 7 hours of
Binge
something.
watching, yeah. So Salem's Lot, there's a couple of reasons. Yeah, it's TV, and it's just, I mean, it's probably better than Eaten Alive.
There are moments that really stand out in Salem's Lot, but on the whole, it's just very made for TV.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get past that. And then the other one, and this is a little bit of a nod to you, George.
Thank you.
The other one that might have made the list is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Why did it not make the list?
Yeah, I just hate it so much.
You do hate it so much.
And maybe it wouldn't have been as bad if it wasn't, the sequel, obviously, to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I just think it's such a departure. And it's even worse when you compare it to the original. It's just, I just can't stand it. So, yeah, thank you for that.
I know that there is an impression that you're dying.
Leatherface? Well, what's going on, Leatherface? Hey, go kill her. Get her, Leatherface.
Okay, I just needed to get that out of the way because I figured if I didn't.
I hate that.
I know. I know that you do.
What did this movie become? It's not scary in the slightest. So, yeah, that's the last time I'm going to do that. Thank you very much.
So,
anyway, Eaten Alive is number 5 from 1976.
Yes, it is.
Not that it's a great movie.
No, it's fun to watch though, and it is really quite grisly, and there's a lot. It does have some things in common with Texas Chainsaw Massacre because it's basically another story of, I guess, delicious interlopers like going to the wrong area of the Texas and finding themselves served for dinner.
Yeah, and I guess it's loosely based on a real guy named Joe Ball in Texas. Somewhere around after Prohibition ended, he owned a bar with an alligator pit serving as entertainment attraction in the back, and then was eventually suspected of murders. And apparently back in the late 30s, he was about to be arrested by the police in connection with the murders, and he committed suicide. So it's loosely based there.
Yeah, I don't think probably there's much reality in this, and it's funny. I mean, I actually really like this movie, but I like it because it's bad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, there are some things that he does that are very effective. Sort of not as good, but sort of in the way that The Hills Have Eyes, in a lot of ways, is just terrible. But there are moments of it that make it really stand out and hold together. Now, this doesn't hold together nearly as well. And one of the things I think it tries too hard to be funny, and that doesn't work very well at all. But I mean, the things that are unintentionally funny, like we open in his backwoods cat house. Robert Englund is a hillbilly who's come to be serviced, and the girl objects to his request.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets kicked out. They just throw her out. And a maid at a backwoods whorehouse dressed in a full maid uniform, because those ladies really give a shit about how their hired help is dressed, hands this prostitute some cash so that she can go stay at the hotel up the road while she gets herself together, which is a bad idea because at the hotel up the road, the pervy owner feeds people to a gator. So that's how you start. But the thing that sticks out to me still that I noticed more I remembered the most from the first time I watched this movie are these wigs. These women are all wearing these incredibly bad, obvious wigs, and yet the wigs don't float off when they get submerged. And I think the first time I saw this, when I was like 11 or 12, I remember even then thinking, well, that wig's got to come off, won't it? And so it's like a childhood memory. My thinking the wig, at the time, it made sense to me. I thought, we all know she's wearing a wig, right? So I thought that would be part of like the drama. Then the wig would like float to the surface. But I guess we weren't supposed to know that she was wearing a wig.
Great special effects in 1976. And the other thing, you're going to talk about Tobe Hooper. You have to mention a theme does keep running through some of these films, and this one included. According to makeup artist Craig Reardon, the cinematographer on this movie directed several scenes, and not Tobe Hooper, due to creative differences with the film's producers. So take that with a grain of salt if you need to. But that's a theme we're going to talk about a little bit more here as these go on, just how much of these movies he actually directed. But that's number 5, 1976, Eaten Alive. Moving up to number 4 in our list of Tobe Hooper horror. It's a race of space vampires arriving in London and infecting the populace, from 1985, Life Force.
They watched. They waited. Now their time has come. Out of the depths of space, the ultimate terror. Moving. Searching, destroying, from body to body, from life to life, from man to woman, changing, growing, burning for our life force. From the director of Poltergeist, from the special effects creator of Star Trek, the motion picture, Life Force. In the blink of an eye, the terror begins.
You don't watch this movie and think for 1 second, this is a Tobe Hooper movie. You just don't. And it's borderline horror. It's really sci-fi.
Well, and actually, after doing that video, Billy Idol almost got a role as one of the male vampires.
Oh,
he
yeah?
was considered. Yeah, it's kind of funny that he didn't after working with him in the.
It is kind of funny.
85. That was still in Billy Idol's heyday,
Oh,
so he was
yes.
probably quite busy.
It might have actually made some money had he been in it.
And I guess Peter Cushing too was considered for a part.
Oh,
Didn't make it. So yeah, those are a couple of additions to the
Picard
cast.
was in it.
Well, yes, Sir Patrick Stewart.
that's right, Sir Patrick Stewart, and he's got some hair.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's got a few faces like that, and Steve Railsback, who I remember, and a lot of people maybe my age might remember. He played Charles Manson in the TV version.
Oh.
Yeah, back in the day.
I saw that TV Helter Skelter,
Yes.
but I didn't know
He
that guy's
played
name.
Manson,
Wow.
yeah, and he was so scary.
He
I
was
remember
scary in that
as a
movie.
kid watching that, just his face. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I always remembered that name, Steve Railsback. He scared me as playing
Yeah.
Manson on Helter Skelter on TV.
But so the movie, and it's funny because they always the space vampires, because actually it's based on a novel called Space Vampires,
Right.
And they changed the title because they didn't want the movie to seem like an exploitation. They wanted it is kind of more highbrow than the title Space Vampires would suggest. But there's nothing about this that suggests. I mean, they're not vampires. They're just not. But that's okay. And mainly what it is a naked woman. That's really the whole thing you need to know. So there is a spaceship, and it detects another spaceship. And so when it goes in, it finds all these like pruned up dead bodies and these 3 aliens that are in glass cases, and mainly as far as the camera can tell, there's a naked woman in these glass cases. So they bring them back on board their ship and head back to Earth. By the time they land on Earth, everybody's dead except these 3 naked aliens. And then they open the case. Clearly, you shouldn't be opening these cases. They open the case, and all you need, then it's just, there's a naked alien woman. There's a naked alien woman sucking the life force out of every seemingly very willing man in London. It's just she never has clothes on. She's Matilda May, and she's awfully naked.
And it's actually this is the first film in Tobe Hooper's 3-picture deal with the Cannon Group. And the other two were Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and Invaders from Mars.
Oh, right.
So, and, apparently back then, that group, which was the Gulan Gulbis producers that were very busy back then and had a certain amount of reputation, but apparently Tobe Hooper said nothing but great things about working with them. And they
that's good.
obviously funded 3 of his movies, but this was the first of that trifecta of movies that he worked with there.
And it's just, it's so very, very not him. It's not gritty. It's not, it doesn't have like that sort of visceral gut punch about anything. And it's fun. It's very much an ode to the Hammer film Quatermass in the Pit, which is a bit campy and highbrow and more than you would expect. It's also very much a sci-fi film more than it's a horror film, although there is this great scene where the vampire aliens, they start sucking the life out of Londoners, but then the Londoners who are pruned up suck the life out of the next Londoner. So basically it's a zombie apocalypse in London, many years before we started to see that routinely. And it's a really fun, frenetic scene that's really probably the best scene in the movie. But it's not a bad movie. It's really not. It's very peculiar. Like the whole movie, the pacing of it, the storyline of it, how characters sort of come and go and disappear and then they're back and who's connected to whom and why are these things happening. It's a really, really odd movie, but, I think more interesting because of that.
Mm-hmm. Life Force. And that's number 4 on our list of Tobe Hooper horror, 1985's Life Force. Going up to number 3, it's 4 teenage friends spending the night in a carnival funhouse, and they're stalked by a deformed man in a Frankenstein mask. 1981, The Funhouse.
Something is alive in the funhouse. Something not alive like its father. Something better dead. Something that has the form of a human, but not the face.
This better be good.
It's gonna be great. Something that feeds off the flesh and blood of young innocents.
Come on, here we go. This is it.
Something that tonight will turn the funhouse into a carnival of terror.
I just want to get the hell out of here.
The Funhouse. It's a carnival of terror from Tobe Hooper, the director who terrified you with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
This one's not great, but it's good. I genuinely like The Funhouse. I always have. And you can see how, these kind of theme park horror films have all stolen from this movie ever since then.
Well, and to keep the Billy Idol theme rolling here, he reused some of the props from this movie in that video. I'm going to find a way to work in Billy Idol and Dancing with Myself in each of these if I can.
I'm
but no,
all
some
for
of
that.
some of the props turned up. Some of the props from this movie turned up in that video, which is cool.
It is this incredibly creepy video. Like, it was very much not like any other video that you saw at the time. And it's not creepy in that Michael Jackson Thriller sort of way.
Yeah.
There's like the sort of, straight razor on a leather strap bit. It's a creepy video. So Funhouse, it feels more predictable, I think, than it would have at the time because so many movies kind of stole from it afterwards. It's, these sort of double dating kids. They decide they're going to hide out in the carnival after it closes and they're going to spend the night in the funhouse, which is just good decision making right there. The part that's fun is the creepy, seedy, carny atmosphere that he develops. And in his better movies, in the movies that are more memorable, I think that's really one of Tobe Hooper's great skills is creating this unseemly atmosphere that you and the sort of wholesome youths have found themselves trapped inside. I think that's very often what works best in his movies, and it does in this one. And the carnies are creepy,
They usually are.
Yeah.
And also the monster it's interesting because the original plan was to have the makeup effects artist on the movie play the monster. But then Tobe Hooper, I guess, caught a performance of a mime named Wayne Doba and was so, captured by his movements and that he got the part and he plays the killer, the monster in this movie.
Nice. It's it's a very 1981. It really is. But I've always really enjoyed this movie. I think just for the seediness, if nothing else, Plus, I like carnival horror movies. I think there's a real element of like the alien sort of unsettling environment, like you're not supposed to be there. There's something seedy about it. And I always find that compelling. And I like what he does with it in this movie. And
legend has it that working on this movie was the reason he turned down. Apparently, the story goes, Steven Spielberg asked Tobe Hooper to direct E.T. Originally, at least offered it to him. But he was busy with this movie. And, of course, they ended up working together in a movie we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But on this one, apparently that's the story. That's the reason that he turned down E.T. because he was busy with this movie. Can you imagine E.T. being directed by Tobe Hooper?
Can you imagine, like, years later, Tobe Hooper looking back at that? I decided that I wasn't going to direct what would go on at that time to be the most popular film in history, although at the same time, would it have been if Tobe Hooper had directed it?
It's weird to think, how it might have been different.
Yes.
How a lot of things might have been different. And apparently, too, at some point during the filming, talk about scary, real life scary, Tobe Hooper was bitten by a brown recluse spider.
Wow.
Which can be nasty, deadly. Somewhere out there in the sticks when they were filming, he got bitten by a spider. So that is nasty.
Yes.
And that is The Funhouse from 1981, number 3. And getting up to the big 2, I bet you can guess what they are. Coming in at number 2, one we were just kind of alluding to. A family's home is haunted by a host of ghosts. Poltergeist.
They're here. I don't know what hovers over this house. I've never sensed anything like it. What's happening?
Now, this is the one really where the stories of how much did Tobe Hooper direct come into play. This one more than any other, because you look back and there are a lot of people that say this is mainly a Steven Spielberg movie. In fact, I think Zelda Rubinstein from Poltergeist was quoted at one point as saying that during this movie that Tobe Hooper didn't direct Traffic, that this was all over. But then I think also you can find some quotes where Steven Spielberg kind of backtracks on that and says that, Tobe Hooper was not really that much of a take charge kind of guy. So Spielberg says that he would, suggest certain things, but Tobe Hooper always had the final call. So we don't know the real story. Take with it what you will, but he is listed as the director. But of course, you can tell there's plenty of input from Mr. Spielberg here.
Oh, yeah. It does. It definitely has Steven Spielberg's thumbprints all over it. I mean, if you think about the two films of Spielberg's that came out in 1982, right? You've got this idyllic suburb, and the piece is kind of punctuated by a supernatural presence. And in one case, it's this big-eyed, sweet alien. In the other case, there's more flesh tearing in the other one. There are certain scenes that do seem dated at this point, where he tears his face off in the mirror, that at the time was just amazing. And now you look back and go, ugh, I don't know. But the heart of this movie is still really very relevant. And because I think there are two things that, whether Spielberg or Hooper, either one, that what they capture really well is childhood fears, like that creepy tree, and certainly the clown, right? Childhood fears. And at the same time, though, I think the bigger theme, maybe easier, is adult fears, that when she could hear her daughter and couldn't get to her.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons this movie works and continues to work is Jo Beth Williams' performance. She's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny when you think about that. There are no deaths and really only a couple of light injuries in the movie.
Well, it's PG.
I know.
And that's scary as shit, though.
And that was by design, because you mentioned E.T. at the same time.
Right.
I guess it was Spielberg. He wanted, because the original plan, I guess, was to have Carol Ann actually die early on and then have her be part of the haunting.
Ghosts, yeah.
But then that was right away, that was deemed too dark, and because Spielberg's plan, what he wanted was for it to be PG so it could be a double feature with E.T. at the same time. So, yeah, but when you think about it as a horror film, and of course it qualifies, but yeah, there are no deaths, but there are some good scares, and there's some serious creepiness. And I remember when I saw it in the theater for the first time being really creeped out.
Oh, yeah. It's a scary movie.
It is.
It's a very effective, scary movie. And, I think a lot of that really is due to how well it's made. It doesn't rely on much of jump scares. It has really well produced effects, and the performances are great, and the storyline is very human.
Yeah, and think about how many moments in this movie have become just part of the popular culture.
Oh, yeah.
You've got They're Here.
Oh, yeah.
You've got the TV. You've got This House is Clean.
Right,
those things that, the film has remarkable staying power.
Really, it does.
And even quotes like, you didn't move the graves. Things like that. I mean, they just come up in popular culture and are constantly referred to and maybe, and parodied and other things. But still, that's a form of flattery.
Sure.
I mean, it has considerable legs, this movie does, and staying power in the popular culture and in cinema. So it's very, very effective. But I think you're right. I think, we'll never know who did what, how much contribution was by who, but it really has Spielberg's thumbprint all over it. But regardless, it's listed as it's the highest grossing movie of Tobe Hooper's directing career.
Yeah.
Because it was a huge hit.
Huge hit.
And then, and then a few years ago they did the remake, which was
not good. It wasn't good.
Yeah,
and we were
hopeful. It wasn't horrible. It had some moments, but it didn't.
I think we only like it at all because Sam Rockwell was in it, and he is hard not to like.
He is. He's always good. So that leaves a room at the top for only one. You know what it is. Two siblings visiting their grandfather's grave in Texas, along with three of their friends, are attacked by a family of cannibalistic psychopaths from 1974, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
This is the movie that is just as real, just as close,
Crazy! You gotta make us stop!
just as terrifying as being there. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. After you stop screaming, you'll start talking about it.
We were lucky enough just to host a screening of this at the Gateway Film Center, our home away from home, just the other night. And a great crowd came out, just to kind of talk about Tobe Hooper and just be in a film community and enjoy this movie one more time on the big screen, which I know you were happy to do.
I wasn't. It was a gorgeous 4K restoration of it.
Yeah.
And, this is, I don't even know how many times this movie has made one of our lists, but obviously it was going to top the list today, so I don't feel guilty about that.
And talk about a movie with legs, a movie with staying power, just one of the most iconic horror films ever for so many reasons. And I guess an inspiration for the film apparently came to Tobe Hooper while he was standing in the hardware section of a crowded store and thinking of a way to get out of the crowd. He spotted a chainsaw. So you never know when inspiration will strike. But boy, it led to just one that was, when it came out, think of that, 1974, just shocking.
Oh, yeah.
Just incredibly shocking for so many reasons. And I think one of the things that really still gets to me are some of the sounds, because there's not really so much of a soundtrack. They made sure that a lot of the sounds were sounds that would be heard inside a slaughterhouse. And I think I've mentioned before, one of the ones that always gets to me is when that door slams.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Not only the visual of slamming the door, but the sound that door makes.
So great.
It's just that moment right there gets me.
And also, there's always that chicken, that buck, buck, buck you could hear, and then when you finally see it, you're like, why is that chicken in a bird cage? There's so many things about this movie that are just meticulously done.
Yeah.
And you said, 1974, it's obviously, it's been so long that I think it's sometimes hard to sort of define what a watershed moment this film was. And it came out during a period, American independent film of savage cinema, the early Wes Cravens, we were already talking about, Hills Have Eyes, and a bunch of other really gritty guerrilla style not all of them hold up that well. This one is the best of all of them because it's like every creative decision he made worked brilliantly, and and it changed so many things about horror movies, about a score, about the creepy score that tells you, oh, be worried, turn around, or the light and shadow, and so many things that were subconscious triggers to moviegoers to let them know that something spooky or scary is going to happen, to prepare us, right? We didn't get, because it was mostly outside. It was mostly broad daylight. There was no score to speak of. We were never prepared for what was about to happen.
Yeah, and in really kind of an ironic twist, a backfire, Tobe Hooper originally wanted to try to get a PG rating here.
I know.
And think about it, as scary as this movie is, there's very little blood.
Very little.
So he was trying to go for a PG rating by keeping the violence moderate and have most of the horror implied and not shown in great detail. But that actually made it, for a lot of people, even more horrific, so that I think most people know the story, that originally it was given an X rating for violence that was mainly implied.
So, except for this, and I always think of this, the first thing that pops into my mind when I hear that, they hang a woman on a hook.
Never hang me on a hook.
You're dead. But it's not like, that's not implied. They hang her on a hook. They hang her on a hook.
I know.
She's reaching behind her, trying to pull herself up. You're not going to get a PG rating with that.
But there was no blood there. Yeah, that got me too. Hanging on a hook, that's nasty. And then there's, another one of the iconic images is your buddy Gunnar Hansen, R.I.P., running around just waving that chainsaw all over the place. But part of that was because, he's tall. He was tall enough as it is. We got to meet him at Horror Hound a few years ago. Marilyn Burns as well.
Yeah.
He's a big guy. And he was still he wore like 3-inch lifts in those boots. So he was huge. But even wearing all that stuff, he could still run faster than Marilyn Burns. So when they were having those scenes, he had to waste time and slow up so he wouldn't catch her. Just start waving that thing all over the place so he was running slow. But that is such an iconic image of him just... it's just waving it at anything that gets in the way. Yeah. And it's funny how those things happen sometimes accidentally that become so effective in a movie like this.
Marilyn Burns is great. Gunnar Hansen, magnificent, right? But the one who just and Franklin is great. Everybody hates Franklin.
Yeah.
It's really a good performance.
Including, and I think we've talked about this before, including Gunnar Hansen. He did not, the actor that played Franklin was a guy named Paul Partain.
Yep.
And he didn't get long, but then he found out later it's because Paul was trying to be that annoying guy the entire time.
Yeah.
And after they wrapped shooting, he found out, he's an all right guy. He was just staying as Franklin, so I want to punch him in the face.
Right. But for me, it's Edwin Neal. It's the hitchhiker.
Yeah.
I love that character so much. I love that performance so much because it is, the chef's performance. I love him, but it's a little campy. It's a little goofy. And of course, Gunnar Hansen, it's a very physical performance, clearly.
Yeah.
But Edwin Neal comes off as a complete freak. Like, you buy his sort of giddy, no, let's be friends, let's be nice, no, I'm going to kill you. I mean, you just buy it completely.
Well, not only that, but it sets, from the time they pick him up, it sets the entire mood.
Oh,
like,
it does.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
You know what? Let's just turn around and go back because this guy is just freaky, and I don't like what's going to go on after this.
Oh, yeah.
He's so freaky. And he, too, was quoted years later as saying, he was a Vietnam vet, and he said that shoot was worse than anything he encountered in Vietnam. So, whoa.
Wow.
But yeah, he really sets the tone right
does.
away for the creepiness of that entire movie.
I love him.
So many things work. And of course, John Larroquette, at the beginning, he's the voiceover.
Yeah.
He's got a great voice. He had a great voice.
He absolutely does.
Apparently, he was just hanging around, and he had the voice for it.
As many times as we've mentioned this movie, I don't think I've ever said this before, but I'm going to say it now. I have always felt so badly for that truck driver driving in the Black Maria, truck driver.
Yeah.
Because she's all happy. She's getting away in the back of that pickup truck, and he, Leatherface, he's, waving around, and you're in the back of your head, you're going, well, that truck driver's still there. Like, Leatherface is going to realize that
Yeah.
that truck driver is still there. Oh
Yeah.
my God, they're going to kill him and eat him.
Good point.
Yeah, my whole life, I've always felt so bad for that guy. Pulled over to help her out, and then
No good deed goes unpunished.
that's right.
Truck driver. So number one, of course, what's it going to be in the career of Tobe Hooper? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. So, yeah, another talent gone too soon. Tobe Hooper passing away, so we wanted to do that tribute podcast. So chime in. What do you think? You want to get on me for not liking Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2? Wail away. It wouldn't be the first time, but it's please make your comments known. We'll keep that conversation going. Always have a lot of fun on Twitter. It's the easiest way. Or at Mad Wolf, MADDWOLF, Mad Wolf Columbus on Facebook. Also Mad Wolf Columbus on Instagram. We never tout our Instagram. We're trying to get better with our Instagram game.
Yeah, we don't pay that much attention to
We're getting
Instagram,
there.
so we're
getting there. We're
gonna
trying.
ramp it up.
Yeah, not quite as busy as we are on Twitter, but we're Mad Wolf Columbus on Instagram as well. And of course the main website, madwolf.com, where you can always find these Fright Club podcasts, as well as Golden Spiral Media, and of course Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to get your podcasts, and maybe write a review. As we said a couple of podcasts ago, we were tardy about reading some of the new reviews, and there's some great ones there. We thank you so much. Now, I don't want to make fun of it because we really appreciate it so much.
Yeah,
so
we
if
do.
the spirit moves you, please do that. So we look ahead to that. We look ahead to your feedback, and we look ahead to, once again, the next Fright Club Live, which, as I said, will be September 13th at the Gateway Film Center. We're going to show Ginger Snaps and talk about Horrific Sisters. And then, once again, we got to give a nice plug for the Nightmares Film Festival.
October 19th to the 22nd. So if you can make it, you should make it. It's going to be the Gateway Film Center. And if you've been to horror film festivals in the past, I promise that you have not been to one as cool as this. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, it really is. The accommodations, the theater itself is so great for something like this. The environment where you get to watch the films. It's not like it's being, shown in an alley out back. It's in nice, gorgeous, state-of-the-art theaters. And, it's just really a chance to not just see some great upcoming horror, but to hang out with the filmmakers because they do. They're there the whole time. They're meeting each other. It's really, as you said last time, George, a really sort of community developing event.
It really is. And full disclosure, we are on the judging panel. We've helped to pick a lot of the movies that get into the film festival, which we're very honored and excited to do. We've seen some great movies already, so I can tell you right now, you're going to see some great stuff.
Yeah, you really are.
I mean, take even that out of it because last year was the first year for the festival. We were not part of the judging panel, and we were so impressed.
Oh, yeah, we were there the whole time, and we will be there the whole time this time, too.
So we were very, very honored to be asked to be on the judging panel. But, yeah, we can't recommend it enough, and we're not just being blowing smoke here. It's really going to be a great, great event. So if you can make it again, it's October 19th through the 22nd.
And we just got the okay, actually, to record a Fright Club during the event. Now, it probably won't be the traditional type. It won't be a theme with a top 5. It'll probably be more of a QA. We haven't really decided exactly what we're doing, but just another reason to come to the show.
Yeah, we're going to do a live podcast taping there at Nightmares. Subject, topic still to be decided, but maybe kind of a wide-ranging Q&A thing. We'll see. But it should be fun. Love to have you as part of that.
That's
so
right.
Make it if you can. And chime in on Twitter. We got a lot of stuff going on. And again, R.I.P. to Tobe Hooper. It was fun to talk about his horror career and some of the great films that have made their way into the, like I said, into the pop culture.
Yeah.
And just such lasting impressions that he was a part of. So thank him for his work. Thank you for your feedback. And until next week, I'm George Wolf.
I'm Hope Madden.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Stay frightful, my friends.